Are You Sea Level Wise is a game to facilitate discussions about climate change adaptation concepts related to sea level rise. As a community, you are facing rising sea levels, resulting in shocks like erosion and flooding, and long-term stresses like permanently higher tides. But in this game, if you plan ahead and take the right adaptation options, you can adapt to these impacts. In order to play the game, you need the sea level rise map to serve as your game board, the adaptation actions list, a series of chance cards, your point markers for the game board, the collection of decade impact cards, beans or something else to serve as tokens for the game, the Are You Climate Ready rules, as well as a scorecard. If you don't have any point markers for the board, you can just as easily use a dry erase marker to mark your spot on the board. The objective of the game is for each of the players to achieve all 4 of the retreat milestones within 6 decades. If just one player does not achieve all 4 of the milestones, all players lose. So keep that in mind when you're playing the game to ensure you can all collectively be sea level wise. To set up the game, you'll distribute 2 point markers to each of the players. You can have between 4 and 6 players to play this game. Additionally, you'll instruct each of the participants to write their name on the appropriate spot. Next, you will shuffle and stack the different chance cards. After that, you'll add one of the point markers to indicate the beach health starting score, which is at 15. Next, you will display the Decade 1 flip cards to indicate that we are starting at Decade 1. Following that, you will set aside 20 tokens for the community fund, which you can collectively use to help you win the game. Be careful though, because once the money is gone, it cannot be replenished, so use it wisely. Once the board is set up, you'll hand each of the players a scorecard to track their adaptation actions along the way. Additionally, you'll give each player the set of adaptation actions that they can take. There's a front and a back to this list, so make sure you look at it carefully. You'll start the game by providing income to each of the players. In Decade 1, each participant will roll 2 dice to determine their starting income. For example, the red player would collect 6 tokens to start the game. For Decade 1, note to skip Step 2, as chance cards won't be introduced until Decade 3. After all of the players have received their income, you'll move to the next step, which is investing in adaptation actions. Each participant can now choose to invest their tokens in adaptation actions from the adaptation actions list. As you look to this list, you'll notice different sections. You'll notice the blue and gray sections for accommodating or protecting your existing home against sea level rise. You'll notice the green section for your retreat milestones. Then you'll notice the white section, which explains you can do nothing or create your own strategy if you have an idea that's not on the list. Pitch your idea to the group and explain what you think the cost and point value should be and why. Then the facilitator and the group will agree. In addition to these options, you can also invest in community actions. However, not all players need to invest in community actions in order to be awarded points. For example, if the red, blue, and purple players choose to invest in protect, invest in a cross-shore structure, all players would receive 2 points, even though the yellow player did not also invest. Each of these actions will buffer the impact of simulated flood hazards due to sea level rise in the next step. Hazards impact participants by costing them tokens, but each flood resilience point awarded will buffer token loss by 2. For example, if a hazard impact would cost you 6 tokens in damage, but you have 2 flood resilience points, you would only have to pay 2 tokens. Additionally, some actions can have an impact on the beach health score. This can either be positive or negative. Note that if beach health dips below 0, everyone must invest in beach health restoration efforts to bring the score back up before moving on. so choose your actions wisely. For example, the red player might choose to invest in accommodate, elevate mechanical equipment for 3 tokens. You'll notice that this action has a negative beach impact of 1. So you'll move the beach health impact token by 1. Additionally, you'll notice that this adaptation action provides 1 flood resilience point. After investing in your adaptation actions and moving your point tracker on the game board, make sure to mark off which actions you took on your scorecard, as an action can only be completed 1 time throughout the game. Once all of the players have invested in adaptation actions, your game board might look something like this. Step 4 is the major flooding event of the decade, also known as the hazard. This could be a storm, major swell, or even a king tide. The facilitator will roll the hazard die to determine the severity of the major flooding event. The rolled number, 1 through 6, represents the severity of the shock and results in damage that you have to pay to repair. Note that 1 point is added to the dice each decade because sea level rise intensifies other hazards, but it's also a hazard itself that gets worse over time. This is called a climate stress. For example, in decade 1, whatever we roll will have an additional 1 point added to the severity of the shock. For example, in this decade, we would have rolled a 4, but would have to add 1 point to represent the additional impact. So the impact of the hazard during decade 1 would actually be a 5. Because the red player has 1 flood resilience point, the impact is buffered by 2 tokens. So instead of paying 5 tokens, this player would only have to pay 3 total tokens. If a player doesn't have enough tokens to pay off the damage from the hazard event, the remaining total will be taken out of their income from the next decade. Note that flood resilience points do not grow away each decade. However, with each decade, there is an increase in impact, so plan for retreat accordingly. Once you have achieved all 4 of the retreat milestones and are in the Mauka Zone, you are no longer impacted by flooding from sea level rise and can still acquire income that you can save up for the future or choose to share with your community. To start the next decade, flip the decade indicator card. Then move the beach health score down by 1. Now you're ready to go back to step 1 and start by distributing income to all of the players. Note that for decades 2 through 6, income will now be a standard 7 tokens for each of the players. Make sure to subtract any debts from people who couldn't fully pay for damages from the previous hazard. Play out the rest of the decade by investing in adaptation actions and simulating another hazard. At the end of decade 2, your board might look something like this. Once at decade 3, begin as you normally would by flipping over to the next decade card. Moving the beach health score down by 1, and distributing the 7 tokens per player, as well as collecting any debts. Starting in decade 3, the facilitator will now draw a chance card to determine additional impacts on flood resilience points, income, community funds, or beach health. Some cards will help, but some cards will make things more challenging, so plan accordingly. For example, in our decade 3, the facilitator might draw the federal grant chance card. In this chance card, the community would have received a National Coastal Resilience Fund grant. As a result, in the consequence, the bank will add 7 tokens to the community fund. Continue to play the game, including the chance cards, for the remaining decades. All players must achieve the milestones in order 1 through 4 to win the game. At the end of the 6th decade, the activity is over. If all participants end the activity in the Mauka Zone, meaning that you've achieved all 4 retreat milestones in order, you have all successfully adapted and won the game. But if even one person hasn't, unfortunately, your whole community loses, because communities are not adapted to climate change if we leave people behind. Will your community be sea level wise? Play the game to find out.